Dear friends, a great pleasure to be here in my native city of Lisbon to speak at this Microsoft event, Building Future. Let me start by saying that I have a great admiration for Microsoft. I think it's one of those companies that has helped transform the world for the better. I know Bill Gates for many years, including now. I was recently with him in Davos because the Gates Foundation is one of the founders of an organization that I'm now sharing, Gavi, the Global Alliance for Vaccines. And I have a great admiration for his philanthropic work and also for his commitment to a better future in our societies. The theme here, artificial intelligence, is difficult for me because I know I'm speaking to many engineers or managers. Some of you know much more than me on this subject. But when I was invited, they told me that it was to give a perspective from a political and policy-making point of view. And in fact, I've been dealing with artificial intelligence for some time now. As you know, our AI became the issue last year, basically. It was last year when there was a great attention worldwide to AI. For instance, this year also in Davos, that was the topic dominating almost all discussions. But in fact, we have been following AI developments, including generative AI, more, let's say, advanced forms of AI, including what, by the way, someone I know for some time, Sam Altman, calls superintelligence. Is an expression that he prefers to AI, superintelligence. And in fact, I'm convinced that AI will have, is already having, but will have a major impact in our economies. And what we are seeing is just the beginning. The impact will be huge in our economies and beyond the economies. It's a real transformative technology that will change not only the way we produce goods and distribute services, but also the way we interact with each other. It is already having a great impact in science overall, but also in business and also in political and geopolitical matters. I will come back to that point in a minute. But first of all, there will be some impact in workforce. There are some estimates, including by Goldman Sachs, saying that at least 24% of the work in Europe will be automated. We have to consider at least 300 million jobs globally that can be affected. And so this means that we are now requiring a new skill set, also because of the impact of AI. There are also some differences among the different populations, including something that should be a concern. Only 16% of the AI skilled workers are now women. So the issue of gender diversity has a specific dimension also in the field of AI. Now, AI and generative AI and the more advanced forms of AI is happening not isolated. We are in the middle of a great scientific and technological revolution. What is happening with quantum computing, with gene editing, the new technologies in biotechnology, all this is a major transformation. In fact, those different changes in technology are reinforcing each other. So there is an exponential effect, for instance, between quantum computing and AI. And that's important to understand. We are in the middle of a great scientific and technological transformation. I don't know if it is as deep as someone suggests that it is, at least as transformative as it was the Industrial Revolution in Europe some time ago, or even some go to the point to compare the discovery of generative AI to the impact of discovery of fire or to discovery of the will. But in fact, it's something major. It's not something just adding or incremental. We are in a real transformation and rupture in the way we are going to work in the future. Of course, there are risks, and we know what about the risks. First of all, there is a risk in terms of privacy, data privacy, and data protection. In the European Union, by the way, and I come also with the European perspective, you remember that we have created, in fact, it was my commission who launched it back in 2007, but it took almost 10 years to be implemented, because the European Union, unfortunately, from a legislative point of view, sometimes is too slow. GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, that at that time was very criticized, but I think today everybody will agree that it's better to have the same regime of data protection than to have one different for each country. And in fact, that GDPR has been establishing some kind of standard in other parts of the world, for instance, in California and in other parts of the world. So yes, we need some form of sensible regulation, namely to protect data privacy, to protect data, when it comes with the uses that AI can have of massive, let's say, sources of data. But as always in politics, and now speaking from a political or policy-making level, as always, it is important to find the right balance. As you know, very often people say that Europe is better in regulation than innovation. And I believe it's true. So we have to find the right way of regulate to mitigate the risks, to adapt to new technologies, but without reducing the possibilities of innovation in that sector. This is an issue for Europe, and I think also for the rest of the world. And also, of course, AI can also have disruptive effects in terms of increasing disinformation, increasing deep fakes, in problems of cybersecurity. But in terms of cybersecurity, it's quite interesting because on one side, AI can reinforce the risks on cyber, but on the other side, it gives us new tools to fight the problems in terms of cybersecurity. This matter is being one very interesting matter of progress recently. Now, what's going on now from a more geopolitical point of view is a huge competition who is going to lead the world on AI. And today, in fact, there are two main powers. It's the United States and China. And I was reading just today an editorial of Global Times. It's a newspaper in China that is, in fact, reflecting the points of view of the China Communist Party. And it's very interesting. The Chinese are very worried now with the recent development of that new, as you know, instrument, Sora, developed by AI, OpenAI, and they say, although Sora is not developed in China, it is worth noting that China's AI development is on the right track and gaining momentum. We have to understand, they say, that with AI, the strong get stronger and the weak get weaker. The rapid advancement of large American AI models serves as a reminder for China to hasten its search for a path suitable for AI development and accelerates the creation of a new producing boosters, and so on and so forth. But it's interesting. They, in this case, very transparently, they expose the problems of huge competition, namely between the United States and China, who is going to lead this race for AI and new forms of AI. The reality is that Europe is behind, even if Europe, in some matters, has one of the best pool of talents in AI when you consider engineers, but they are all over Europe. There is strong, let's say, arguments in France, Germany, the UK, out of the European Union, but nevertheless a very important European country. But in fact, if we put together, because usually the statistics do not put together all the European countries, but if we put together Europe, we have a great ecosystem for digital transformation. And today the policy at European Union level is also the digital transition, together with the green transition. So I believe there is a great potential also here in Europe for progress in AI, even if there are some problems. We know one of the problems being the lack of funding. We don't have the culture of venture capital that our American friends have. But there is some catch-up in terms of the financing for startups in the field of AI. And I believe the pool of talent in Europe is strong enough, our science and our technology is strong enough to be a relevant player in also this field. But we have to be honest, we are behind. There are other important centers coming. Israel is a very important center. The Gulf countries, I was recently in Saudi Arabia and Emirates. It's amazing what they are doing in that. Of course, also importing talent from other parts of the world. But I want you to understand that from my point of view, there is a huge competition that is not only between the United States and China, but basically with those two powers, and Europe should play a stronger role. Now, the transformative power of AI goes beyond science and economy. In science, it's doing great, great things, as I already mentioned. Namely, on one field I'm now being following more closely is medicine and health. For instance, as chairman of Global Alliance for Vaccines, I've been following the development of all these vaccines against COVID, mRNA and others, that in fact have been developed to a large extent with use of AI. And there are many vaccines now in the pipeline, including against cancer. I think we are going to see great developments linked to AI in the field of medicine, including so-called personal medicine, because the aggregation of data allows it. By the way, in the article I was quoting to you before that appeared in the Chinese newspaper, they say, China still has advantage in developing AI. Scholars from China and the US unanimously believe that the US is in a leading position in software and hardware development, but in terms of AI applications and data collection, China has a greater advantage. Application scenarios, population size, and industrial cluster effects are also China's advantage. So data, the amount of data is important. So in this case, dimension counts, and that's a point we have to solve if you want also to have success, namely in the field of health and personalized medicine. But as I was saying, the transformative power of AI goes beyond economy and science, and there is a huge problem and concern. It's geopolitics. Because this is what can worry us the most. Because AI is a dual technology. AI is also a technology for war. And in fact, that's one of the reasons it's been developing so fast recently. It's not just private companies and businesses. The departments of defense of the major players are investing in AI. And that's why I believe, I continue to believe, that we are going to see decoupling, global decoupling. Some people call it deglobalization or reglobalization, whatever you want to call it. Some prefer to use the more diplomatic word of de-risking. But in fact, precisely because of technology, technology can have a huge impact from a national security point of view. I don't believe the United States and China will have an open cooperation in this field. And this is why we have to pay special attention to this landscape about AI and defense. For instance, there is that great book that I'm sure most of you know of Henry Kissinger, Eric Schmidt, and Daniel Huttenlocher, The Age of AI, where I think that's the contribution of Henry Kissinger. In fact, we spoke recently, he was in Portugal last year in a meeting I was hosting here in Portugal of the Bilderberg meeting. And some time before, he was commemorating his 100th anniversary. And Henry Kissinger, the message he was conveying to you the last 5 or 6 years was, pay attention because AI is going to change dramatically the systems of defense and the possibilities of weapons control. This is, in fact, something that has to be addressed with great care. Finally, there is a philosophical question that I would like to leave to you. And that's the more passionate thing about AI. How are we humans going to accept the idea that there is intelligence superior to our intelligence, the intelligence of Homo sapiens? Until recently, human beings were believing that they were the more intelligent being on the planet. Okay, for believers, it was God. God, and then Homo sapiens. But now, we are discovering that although it has been created by humans, AI is more powerful, artificial intelligence is more powerful than our intelligence. If we define intelligence as the capacity to solve problems and to apply some skills, no doubts that AI is superior to our natural human intelligence. How are we going to accept that? It's a philosophical question of the most important impact, I believe, that raises issues. Some issues until recently were treated by science fiction, but they are no longer science fiction. For instance, the possibility of language between different machines of AI that develop their own language that we humans cannot understand. The capacity of those AI systems, these solving problems that we don't understand how they have solved. So it's not just, the advantage of AI is not just a matter of scale and speed, it's an issue of new capabilities of developing intelligence, new forms of intelligence. And that reminds me of conversations I had many years ago with someone I admire very much, Shimon Peres. He was foreign minister and he was prime minister, but I met him when we were both foreign minister of Israel. And he was always saying, we only use a small part of our brain. Like muscles, like all of us, we don't use the muscles we have. We only use, in my case, it's quite evident. We only use a small part, but the brain, we only use a... So AI can be the best way of leveraging the capabilities of our human brains. It's really a revolution, what's happening. And so AI can be, if of course addressed properly, the best friend of human intelligence. We can become more intelligent thanks to the tools and developments of artificial intelligence. And that raises issues about emotions, about imagination, about what can we do specifically human. In French, people say, l'inéluctable humain. Is there still room for something that is specific human in front of AI, or it's better to outsource most of our decisions to AI? That's a very interesting question. I believe it's possible to do more with AI, at the same time keep some part for us human. In art, after me there will be a presentation on art, but for instance, many of you have certainly seen in the MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art in New York, a great installation of Rafik Anadol called Unsupervised. And what it was doing, he took more than 200 years of history of art, and in open source, he transformed it. And he created forms, created new forms that could exist but did not exist. This is the point. AI is going to create new forms, new patterns that could exist but do not exist. And that is the issue of science and innovation, because it's creating new shapes, recognizing patterns that we, with our natural intelligence, are not able to recognize, the identification of patterns and meaningful connections. In a way, AI is a kind of a machine of serendipity. I don't know if you are familiar with the concept of serendipity. I am, and I like it very much. A lot of discoveries in the science, including, by the way, in innovation in social terms, is serendipity. But we have to create serendipity. We have to be able to be attentive to transformations, and that, if you have, of course, a larger scale and more speed, we can find easier those meaningful connections and those patterns that usually we are not able to identify. So what can be the role of humans? At least one very important role, the role of curators. Curators. So because we need, in front of this great capability of artificial intelligence, we need to have the capacity to understand what's going on, to make interpretation, to have a broader culture so that we can understand the cross-border between disciplines. And that we humans, at least until now, are better than any other automated system, because we have some capacity of judgment or misjudgment, and we also have imagination. Imagination that goes out of the automated system, but can give us some guidance between the different fields. That's why I believe the development of AI can be extremely positive for a broader culture, for incentivizing our young people to not, of course, we are great if they are making coding, great if they are getting some experts in AI. But we need people that have the curatorial capability to understand what's going on in the world and to understand the great intersections between art, science, and technology. By the way, that author I mentioned, Rafik Anadol, in that installation in MoMA, when asked, where comes your inspiration, he mentioned surrealism and expressionism. So at the end of the day, there is philosophy. Philosophy as the great inspiration for the development of AI. So AI can reinforce potential of the human brain, and if properly managed in terms of risks, mitigating those risks, I believe we should see AI as a great instrument for empowerment. The empowerment of people, individuals, each person, not individuals as a category in general, each person. There is a novel of Dostoevsky. Today it's not very fashionable to quote Russian authors, but I will quote. Dostoevsky in the Brothers Karamazov, or Karamazov Brothers, he says, my father liked mankind in general, but he hated every person in particular. No, this is not the kind of people I mentioned. I mean, each person, each person. So AI can be a possibility to empower every person, every company, and every society. The business, the companies that are not attentive to that will not win. They will lose. So we have to be attentive, looking to the potentiality of AI as a superpower that gives more power to humans in the way to deal with this very complex world. And I think it's exactly time to finish. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.